Well, I think I need some brake fluid. Opening up a jar of pickles. Ugh. Well, that's empty. There we go. I'll need to bleed those to get the air out, but I can stop with a good couple pumps. Who knows the last time this fuel pump was changed, and who knows when this was put on. It worked, it always worked, and well, I guess it finally gave up the ghost after sitting for so long. So I'm going to put a new one on. This one has definitely got its money's worth, I think. this bolt does not want to come out. It's like only being held on by like a thread. There we go. Oh, self-tapper. New pump is a little bit bigger, so I'll need to bend these metal lines a little bit, it looks like. Okay. Now I'll probably get a bunch of gas on me. So let me get this paper towel handy. Maybe I can be quick and slide the new one on. Let's see. I think I'm just going to end up with gas on me. Okay, not too bad. I guess it didn't have a whole lot of suction. Okay. Ugh, got it all down my arm though. My gas does not smell the best. Okay. Yeah. Tighten these up. This is wanting to leak a little gas. And I can bend these lines as needed. I had previously replaced these rubber lines because they were so rotten that they wouldn't let the pump pick up any fuel from the tank. The last time I got this thing running. Okay. Now, if I was like most mechanics, I'd probably just leave it like that. Slide this up a little bit. Mount that on the old hole there. It should be good. Give this clamp a little squeeze. help if I put the bracket on correctly. There we go. Okay, now I just need to wire it up. Got the old wire there. And I'll use the other screw for the ground. Let me get some terminals. Okay. Put a ring terminal here on this ground wire. And we'll hook up this ground wire to the other screw. Now, let's see if this works. Good to go. While I'm under here, I wanted to show y'all this here. Australia rides Monroe gas. potentially the only car here in America that has these particular shocks. Just kind of neat. And there's the fuel pump that was on here. Hansa parts. It's got US patent numbers 3629614. I'm going to guess maybe from the 80s. Good day, and welcome back to Obsolete Automotive. Now, this is a pretty rare car we're going to talk about today, and you probably got a guess of where this car is from. Australia, if you didn't know. Anyways, this is a 1959 Chrysler Wayfarer Coupe Utility, or Ute for short. Now, this is a pretty rare car, rare in the fact that they didn't even build very many of these in Australia. Between 1958 and 1961, they built 1,205 of these Utes. And as you can see, that's not very many. We're talking, what, 200 to 300 a year. And then they didn't make them anymore, at least this body style. So I found this car in Wyoming, of all places. I really don't know how I got there. I got it from the widow of the owner. And it was just listed on Craigslist as a 1959 Chrysler with some not so great photos, but I saw enough to know that this was a special car. So I hopped on the opportunity and bought it, had it shipped back. I've had it for some years now. And I drove it around for a little while, but it needs some work, so it's not really roadworthy. And as you saw, it wasn't even roadworthy enough to make it up to the top of the driveway. So I had to fix the fuel pump, put some fluid in the brake master cylinder, and there's going to be some more stuff this thing needs. Now, where did this car come from? I got a clue on the hubcaps. So on the back side of the hubcaps, the owner took a knife or something, screwdriver, and carved his name and town on it. I guess if the hubcaps got stolen, he'd be able to claim them, but that town was Wudinna, Australia. That's in South Australia, and you can see the license plates have SA on them, South Australia, and they are the original plates that were on this car when it came over here. I really don't know why it came over here, when it came over here, or what the story is. I think that's just kind of lost to time. If you know anything about this car, feel free to let me know. Now, Wudinna is a town of like 500 people, so this car probably would be recognizable, but unfortunately, you can think 1959, a lot of those people probably aren't around anymore. But yeah, if you know anything about this car, let me know. Or if you're from Wudinna or anywhere near there, let me know more about the area. Anyways, let's delve into this car and see what it's about. Now, what exactly is a coupe utility, or a ute for short? Think El Camino or Ranchero here in the States. Essentially what you have is a car that's also a pickup. So you basically get the ride and comfort of a passenger car, but the utility of a pickup. Now, one thing to note is this car, being a 1959, you can see that it has taillights that are pretty much copies of 1956 Plymouth taillights. Now, this car is kind of behind the times in terms of some of its styling, because basically what happened was Chrysler Australia got the bodies for 1954 Plymouths, and then they just kept using them until 1961, and then they added some things here and there to kind of keep them, with the times. So this basic shell here, the cab, is still a 1954 Plymouth. They got the tooling, I guess the dies, in order to make the bodies, and in order to save costs, they just kept using the basic body and just tacked on different things to make them look more like their American counterparts. So this is a 1959, but it's kind of like a 1956 in terms of styling. Now, the wheels on this car are not the correct wheels. When I got this car, it had like 1970s Ford wheels on there. I believe, unfortunately, the original wheels got chucked in the trash at some point. I do have the original hubcaps, but they're a unique size that isn't here in the States, it seems. So I'm going to have to make something work, or if somebody has correct Chrysler Royal, which is the car counterpart, wheels, I might be interested in trying to get a set over here, but I feel like that'd be very expensive. I believe the Utes came standard with 16-inch wheels down here, so the Royal, the car, the passenger car, I believe had 15s. But honestly, I'd take about anything. It's still a MoPar pattern, because these are actually 48 Dodge wheels, 16s actually, but they don't fit exactly right. There's a slight difference to them in terms of how they fit on the hub, so I need to get the proper wheels for this car. Now the cab on this car, it's not a two-door body. It's actually still the four-door body. You can see that the front door is still pretty short, and I believe the rear door is actually still there, and they just leaded it in. On the other side, you can see evidence of that. If you look here, you can clearly see a line there right where the four-door skin would be. I'm pretty sure they just welded up the rear doors, and these Utes were kind of hand-built. The gas-filled tube is, I don't know if you can see it, but it's like got a 90-degree bend. Like, and you can see it's just kind of crude. I guess they had to make that fit and go straight down because of with the pickup bed. And the fins are just kind of on here. There's a lot of lead, I believe. So there's like lead here, it goes up around through here. I think these things are just kind of custom built. Now I am missing a piece of chrome trim that went around the back. The likelihood of me finding a replacement is probably 0, so it'll probably just stay missing. I'm also missing most of the emblems, unfortunately. Now, you can see that they basically copied the 57 Plymouth door handles, but these are still essentially the 54 Plymouth door handles, but they've made a new handle. It's a cast metal instead of the stamped stainless that the American cars had. They kind of cleverly disguised the older door handle into a new one. The Utes also featured this cut bumper, which is kind of interesting. This car has a hitch with these curly Q chain keepers, which I've never seen before, and custom bad boy exhaust that I'll probably cut off at some point. The lenses are supposed to be orange. This one was missing, had an incorrect lens, so I put a 56 Plymouth reverse light lens in here. As you can see, this one's original. You can kind of see that it used to be orange. I just put orange bulbs in here because these are actually the turn signals. So on European cars and cars in Australia, they had separate turn signals from the brake lights. So in America, that was the turn signal and the brake light, and this would be a reverse light. But in Australia, that was a brake light / running light, and that was your turn signal. So they had separate turn signals. So you'll see on, a lot of the European / Australian cars, they'll be separate. They'll be the same car as an American counterpart, but then they'll usually have like the separate turn signals and such. This does have a tailgate, and you can see it's got like the early Chrysler emblems. Kind of stuck. Oh, let me give it a help. And this tonneau cover kind of just slipped on here just to kind of show what it was like, but it is too shrunken to actually do any good. Now this little bar goes in here, and that kind of keeps the tonneau cover up so water doesn't sit in the middle of it. Kind of an ingenious idea. But like I said, this tonneau cover is just absolutely shrunk. You can see there's a little chunk of the bed that's taken up, and behind the rear seat is where the spare tire goes. That's what that little compartment there is. Got a wood floor, and a neat thing about this car, it was factory pink. You can see the paint in places. I've had this panel off, and it's pink inside there. So I'm kind of thinking, like, who ordered a pink Coupe Utility? And was it probably the only one? You can see there, the pink color. Really, really cool. At some point, it was painted this kind of gray color. Wish it was still pink, just because that's just neat. Does have some rust issues. One thing also, I will mention, I'm missing like the round. There's supposed to be a round emblem there, and I believe Chrysler and some other things. But one thing that's kind of neat about this car, it does not have the original motor. It actually has a 265 Hemi 6. This was Australia's answer for a replacement for the Slant 6, essentially. So these were designed and built over in Australia, and they were put into the 1970s Charger Valiants and things like that. So there's probably not very many of these engines here in the States either. Now, originally this car would have had a flathead 6 in it. Now, this was a Power Flat automatic car, so it had a flathead 6 with a 2-speed automatic, push-button automatic, and I guess at some point, maybe the motor blew up, who knows, somebody kind of retrofitted this, Chrysler 265 Hemi with 3-speed automatic into this car. You can see it's got tube headers. It's just a 2-barrel Carter carburetor. Under the hood's kind of a mess, wiring and such. You can see here they needed to run some wires, so they just cut the radiator support. Also has this hood prop rod, I guess because the springs were kind of weak. it's got a lot of the European style stuff. So like this master cylinder. We also got this brake booster, plastic washer jug there, things like that. This car does have windshield washers. Don't know if they work or not, but they go up into the hood. There's little squirters there and over there. You could also option this car with I believe a 313 poly V8, which would basically be the Canadian engine. There's like a weird, I don't know, I guess for export, things like that. There's some odd things. Like I believe the drivetrains were like Canadian and such, and imported to Australia or something like that. I might be wrong, but I seem to recall it was something like that. So this would have had a 313 poly, and then like I believe maybe it had the longer 6-cylinder, the Canadian version essentially. Got an electric fan. Obviously, it's not original because this engine is much longer, and you can see that you cannot get a fan in there. I mean, we got like half an inch of clearance between the pulley bolts and the radiator. I kind of thought that maybe I would convert this car to a V8. I got a lot of poly 318s kicking around, so it would look correct, and for the most part, nobody would know. And maybe couple it to a power slot. Actually, these cars, if they had a V8, they would have had a gold V here that was, I think, the exact same emblem that was on a 58 Plymouth with a V8. So it'd have the gold V there. So you can see my grill's got a little damage, which is unfortunate. The park lot lenses are just plexiglass. Somebody cut them to fit. The originals are, I guess, got damaged or disintegrated in the sun or something. I'm not sure. So I don't have the original park lot lenses. Be nice to find some. You see some more of that pink paint on the firewall and on the hood edge. As far as the interior, pretty small actually, because you got to think this is a 4-door sedan front. So space-wise, the door and everything is a 4-door sedan. Now you may recognize this steering wheel. This is the same steering wheel that would have came in a American production 58 Plymouth, the exact one. You can see this is where the power flat push buttons would have gone. The knobs for the dash, everything are basically the same as like a 54 Plymouth. Dash pad has seen better days. The gauges are Smith's gauges. You see those on a lot of like European vehicles. This is just for the electric fan. That's not supposed to be there. And you got a manual choke, aftermarket temp gauge. As far as factory instrumentation, would have had an oil light here, generator light here. We also got a speedometer and odometer, temperature gauge, fuel gauge, which does work, and our turn signals here on the left and right. And the key, I think, is like out of a forklift or something. That's not original. We do have an ashtray over here, parking brake, which I don't think is hooked up to anything, headlights. Then we got the wiper. Then we have the panel light, which dims or brightens the dash lights, which is pretty much how the early 50s cars were. And we also have a cigarette lighter here. I'm not sure if they all came with that or if that was an option, but you can see the dash has, stamped areas for all the knobs. So maybe they would just have a plug there. Yeah, you can see that somebody hogged in a radio at some point. Check out these awesome hubcaps. So the Australian car's got these sweet forward look hubcaps. You can see this one. Maybe it's hard to make out, but down there on the bottom, right here. It says Wudinna, and up here it has the guy's name, which was, I looked it up before. I can't remember if it's CP or GP Simmons. You can kind of see it there. And Wudinna. That's kind of how I figured out where this car was. I guess, if not originally, the majority of its life. And this box, I think, has always been with the car. It's got like jacks and tools in it. Take a look back here. You can see this little compartment behind the rear seat is where the spare tire would go. And I was thinking that was a speaker hole, but it looks like there is a little panel here. There's one on this side too, so I guess that's from the factory, a little access hole. Now, as far as driving this car, it's like any other car. This one obviously has been modernized a little bit, so it's got electric fuel pump and turn signal's on. Let's actually hit it. You just turn the key. And it's an automatic, so we got this shifter. It's been kind of just stabbed in here. So you got reverse, neutral, drive. You got your low gears, but you can't quite get to them all because it hits the seat. And of course you got park. I guess I could take it for a little drive. Brakes don't be braking too well. They don't be braking at all, it seems. Very hard pedal. Maybe that booster's not really working. Probably not the greatest idea to go down a steep hill. And this motor, like, I think the motor mounts are just absolute garbage because they just, the motor just shakes when it's idling. And the motor really rocks. And it actually kind of hits the firewall because it's, like I said, a little too long. Manual steering, of course. This drivetrain does have some get up and go. Like I said, I believe the rear axle is out of maybe that same Charger Valiant or whatever. It's a newer rear axle for sure. It is always funny to use this car at like a drive-through at a restaurant. Especially there's some drive-throughs that have double drive-through windows, so there's one on either side of a building, so I can actually go on the side that would normally be for a passenger to order from. I can just roll up in this thing and it blows the people's mind when I'm right here and can just order right from the window. And nobody knows what this car even is. Like, they have no earthly idea what this thing is. So there you have it. Brakes are kind of odd, but then you put it in park and turn it off. But thanks for watching the video on my 1959 Chrysler Wayfarer Coupe Utility, all the way from Australia.
hope you enjoyed seeing something that you probably won't see very much of, if any at all. Like I said, I don't know how this car got to the States, but I was privileged to be able to get it, because honestly, I wouldn't have been able to import one. The cost of that would be way beyond my budget. But if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and check out some of the other videos. Don't forget to check out my Instagram at Obsolete Automotive, as well as my Patreon and Facebook discussion group, both of which I'll post links to in the description. So be sure to check those out. Again, I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching. I guess this is where I say good day.